The Agenda's election coverage this week took the pulse of Ontario's healthcare system, poured over the party's economic promises, and opened up the province's energy file. The Agenda's Week in Review now begins with Green Party leader Mike Schreiner and his hopes for a greener Ontario. Let's just share some of your platform in more detail for people to chew on, and then we'll chat, shall we?
Sure.
Coming up in the Green Party platform, lowering payroll taxes for small businesses by doubling the employer health tax exemption. That would be paid for by reversing the Liberals' so-called Bay Street corporate tax cut by 1% and setting the rate at 12.5%. There's $3 billion in annual transit funding in a green budget, which would come from congestion charges, gas taxes, and parking fees. The Greens say they would save us $1.6 billion annually by merging the public and separate school boards, basically the end of the publicly funded Catholic school system. They would cancel the refurbishment of expensive nuclear plants, purchasing low-cost water power from other jurisdictions to save $1 billion a year and create 56,000 jobs. That's some of the Green Party platform. Let's start at the end there. Why cancel the nuclear refurbishment?
Well, because we can buy lower cost water power from Quebec to replace what Darlington would produce, and that saves $1 billion a year, and we want to invest that in your home. The other parties are talking about hydro handouts and gimmicks as ways to deal with rising energy prices. That will not work. It's going to cost us money we can't afford. We found $1 billion to invest in your home to help you save money by saving energy. That will create 56,000 jobs in construction, trades, architects, engineers, people designing more efficient appliances, lighting, and housing materials.
Presumably we lose jobs, though, when it comes to the nuclear rebuild, no?
A few, but by far most studies show that you create about 14 times and even higher more jobs through things like energy efficient retrofits than you ever would through nuclear investment.
You'll forgive this question because I'm not sure if you heard about this, but there was a gas plant cancellation and it ended up costing a certain big amount of money. Are there contracts that you would have to cancel in order to stop that nuclear rebuild?
Well, no, we're not saying to cancel the existing nuclear fleet. We're saying no new money going into nuclear.
Okay, just checking.
Yes.
Does nuclear energy, which of course we rely on for half of our energy mix in the province today, fit into the Green Party's plans at all?
Well, we would phase nuclear out. No nuclear project in Ontario's history has ever come in on budget or on time. As a small business owner, I would invest in a technology that can't deliver on time, on budget. Nobody will insure, and we have no idea what to do with the waste. It doesn't make economic sense when there are lower cost alternatives like water power from Quebec. And if that's going to save us $1 billion a year, which we can invest in your home to help you save money by saving energy, to me that just makes sense.
Is there any concern that you would have about relying on the province of Quebec, which at the moment is part of Canada, but who knows, for our power?
No, because first of all, Quebec sells a lot of their surplus power to the U.S., another country. Why not sell it to their neighboring province of Ontario? And we would also see it as a phased-in contract. So while we were getting water power from Quebec, we could be developing our own Ontario water power sources as well as green energy sources, and most of all, helping people save energy. Right now, people in New York State use power twice as efficiently as we do in Ontario. Let's have our homeowners and our businesses use energy as efficiently as our neighbors in New York State, which will make our businesses more competitive globally and help homeowners save money by saving energy.
Let's just start with this. I think Mike Schreiner has taken pains to show that today's Green Party is not your grandfather's Green Party. It's about more than just the environment. Yes, Peter, how successful has he been at doing that?
I take them seriously. How successful? As in, will they elect any members in the election that's underway now? The answer is, I don't believe so. I think it probably would be a good thing if we had a Green or two Greens in that legislature, because I think that there are elements of the platform that we're going to discuss that are worthy of discussion and worthy of incorporation. But I don't think they're ready for prime time, and I think it's going to be another election before we see a Green in that legislature.
Marcel.
Well, I think the fact that Elizabeth May got elected federally is a sign that the Greens are being taken seriously. But in Ontario, I think they still have a way to go in terms of reaching out and connecting with a lot of voters. Now, if Mike is able to get elected in Guelph, that would certainly put them on the map, and they'd stand a better chance overall.
Marit.
Well, I don't really disagree at all to those points. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about the Greens electing an MPP in this election, and until they can, they're not really going to be the kind of force, and they're not going to get the attention or, frankly, the media attention that they're going to need to get their message across. Their platform document is very interesting. It's obviously an attempt to reframe the image of the Green Party, and I think they are succeeding in doing that to some extent, but I think for most Ontarians, green still means environment, although if you go through this document, you got to flip through a good number of pages before you see the word environment anywhere.
Which I did mention to Mike Schreiner, and you've noticed that too, I'm sure, Rob. How different is this Green Party from your grandfather's?
Well, it's different, but I don't know if it's going to be any more successful, unfortunately. I mean, Mr. Schreiner is an effective leader in the sense that he is accessible, good on camera, good with the newspapers. They've got some interesting ideas, but in poll after poll that I've seen, they're not much above the 3% that they got in the 2011 election. Their high water mark was 2007. I think we were 8-9% that year, 7-8% that year,
yeah,
because of the faith-based schools issue. So they've got a tough slog ahead of them. The first past the post system really penalizes smaller parties like the Greens.
Since it's been raised, you did run hard, Eric. The Green Party did run hard in 2007 on one unified school system. In other words, defunding the separate school system. You're running hard on that again this time. It played pretty well for you in 2007. What are your hopes this time?
I think it's an issue that a lot of Ontarians connect with. And for whatever reasons, none of the other parties want to touch it. And although the Green Party puts it forward and it does generate some opposition, because it's a privilege that's been there for a century and a half, and so it's very entrenched. But I think there is still a huge groundswell of people who understand that there's an anachronism here, that we are funding a specific religion only and not the other ones. And it made sense in the 19th century, but the 21st century, it's time to look at that again. And I think that they respect that we're willing to look at that, even if they don't agree with the conclusion it might come to.
Peter, you know I want to get you on this because, of course, in 2007, the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario ran on extending funds to other faiths. It was a solution that the public of the day didn't like, and obviously the PC party kind of went down in flames on that issue. But that's a dangerous mix, right? Religion, education, and politics. Do you think the Greens are smart to wade in on it?
I think the Greens are differentiating themselves in a positive way, and I think it is an issue whose time will come. I am arguably the only person who got elected on the faith-based funding issue in 2007. The issue of whether Peter Sherman was a good MPP, I think, was resolved somewhat in 2011 when I widened the lead and there was no faith-based funding issue. Having said that, there are times, and thank God nobody who was my opponent ever found them out, when as a talk radio host prior to 2007, I said, why the hell is Ontario the only place left in North America that doesn't have a single public school system? And nobody ever unearthed the tapes. The bottom line is I could live with funding other religious education. I still think it's a reasonable issue, but it's not one any party's going to fight.
Joining us now to help us wade through some of the promises on offer, Brian Milner, senior economics writer at the Globe and Mail, and Genevieve Tomney. She's provincial affairs reporter at CBC Toronto. And Brian, it's good to see you back here
good to see
again.
You too, Steve.
And Genevieve, for the first time. Lovely to have you aboard as
Pleasure.
well. The Liberals and PCs disagree on a lot of stuff, but they both agree not to touch the corporate income tax rate right now. In fact, the PCs want to lower it a bit. Brian, to you first. What does the evidence tell us about whether lower corporate income taxes actually create jobs?
Well, it's a very hot political topic always, and it comes into play usually when corporate tax rates are way too high and clearly out of whack with what neighboring jurisdictions are offering, because you have to be competitive. However, in Ontario's case, the provincial tax rate is actually quite low, and in fact, it's lower than any other province. The national combined rate is lower than most American states. It's lower
Federal
even,
and provincial put together.
which is what corporations have to look at. Yeah. It's lower than even states like, it's about the same as, say, Texas, which is a no-tax, I hate taxes state. If you want real low taxes, you got to go to a place like Ireland, which has 12.5% tax rate, attracts a lot of corporate head offices with almost no jobs.
Can you, I mean, listen, this is all speculation at this point, but moving the corporate tax rate from, let's say, 11 to 8%, which is what the Conservatives want to do, They say that's going to create tens, if not hundreds of thousands of jobs. Any reason to believe that?
Well, I think that's the big question. You know, it certainly plays to their base, to the conservative base, that, you know, decreasing the size of government and lowering the corporate tax rate is going to, you know, get their conservative voters fired up, get them mobilized, want to get them to the polls. But the question is, are they going to be able to win an election just based on the conservative base alone, or are they going to have to sway other voters? And to do that, they're asking other voters to get so jazzed up about the idea of balancing the budget sooner than the Liberals will do it, that they're going to be willing to go to the polls and accept all of the cuts that we're hearing about that are going to go along with it. Because, of course, if you're lowering the corporate tax rate by that much, you're going to have to pay for it somehow. And that's where we're seeing all of these other cuts coming in.
Well, and one of the things that Tim Hudak has said is the one thing he hears from everybody more than anything else from business, balance the books. That's how we kickstart the economy, balance the books, and that's why he wants to do it in 2 years instead of 3. Do you think the red ink is what's holding back this economy from performing better than it does?
No, I don't, because the red ink right now is incredibly easy to finance. The interest rates are at historic lows. And when your economy is really sluggish, that's not the time to impose more austerity. It doesn't work that way. You're supposed to impose austerity when things are great. Ontario didn't do that, didn't do it effectively. And that's the problem they have now. When Britain decided that they would impose austerity in the middle of a recession, they made things considerably worse. They did not increase corporate investment very much because corporations aren't as worried about how governments balance their books as they are about demand in the society for the products and services they're selling. If you increase that demand, then corporations will A, be glad to invest, and B, be glad to hire more people, regardless of what the public deficit situation is like.
So how do you read the politics of all of these, you know, balance the budget in 2 years, cut 100,000 public servants, cut corporate tax rates? What's the politics behind all this?
Well, you know, I think it's interesting because, you know, Hudak has said all along that he's going to come forward with this bold plan, and he really has delivered on that. He's come forward with a lot of specifics, and he's been very clear about what he's going to do. And it's really, you know, in a sense saying, here it is, here's the bad news, but I believe so strongly that we need to balance the budget, that is going to be what creates jobs in this province, that I'm willing to do it. And what's happened is we're really ending up with these, you know, two leading parties with two very different choices for Ontarians to choose from. And I think that's a bit of a change from maybe what we've seen in past elections where, you know, the politicians play it a little more safe, a little more middle of the road. Well, we're not seeing any middle of the road here at all right now.
I want to find out what this chart says to all of you. Andrew, what does this chart say to you?
It says that the doom and gloom story about the middle class, the lines you hear about 30 years without a pay increase, et cetera, are overstated. What you see in that graph are two distinct periods. From the early 80s to the mid to late 90s, you have incomes, in fact, stagnant or indeed falling. This is real incomes. Afterwards, they start rising. They rise pretty steadily until the most recent recession. Those are two different periods, and to sort of homogenize them into one, I think, gives an incomplete or a misleading picture of what's going on. We had a very tough time in the 80s and early 90s because we went through two honking great recessions, and we had massive unemployment. When you have high unemployment, you're going to have higher poverty rates, and you're going to drag down median and average incomes. That's exactly what happened. Since then, when you get steady growth, we've had steady growth in real incomes.
Well, except for the Great Recession.
Which wasn't such a great recession in Canada, right? We got off quite mildly in the 2008 recession. But now that we're past that, incomes are growing again. So the notion to say that it's just been one long period of stagnation, I think, is incorrect and should be discarded from public discourse. That's not a true picture of what's been going on.
Armin Yalnizyan, you see the same chart. What do you infer from it?
So I agree with everything Andrew has said, which is one of the beautiful things about charts, is like there's only so many ways you can interpret numbers, but you can see many different things in it. One of the things that is a sleeper item in this chart is that a median after-tax income is made up by three factors that have caused the increase. Number one is the role of taxes and transfers, particularly in Ontario, has grown. Number two, you can see from the difference between Ontario and Canada over time, from 1996 to 2000, the role of manufacturing in propelling incomes, and that was because of the Americans. Nothing we had done. They were buying the stuff we were making. And that has flattened out since 2000. We don't have the same resource base as other parts of the country whose incomes have been propelled. Ontario, by the way, was badly damaged by the recession compared to other jurisdictions in both employment earnings and after tax.
Sorry, which recession are you referring to?
The most recent one in
The Great
2008.
Recession.
I'm speaking, as always, from a national perspective.
Of course, but this being a provincial show, we want to bring the bacon home.
Thank you.
So the last item is that between 1976 and 2011, the last year in this graph, you've got more people working per family, and you've got a better educated population. So women's labor force participation rate has grown by over 50%. We don't have another 50% to throw into the market for the next generation. And so the question becomes, what are you going to do? Marry a third spouse? Everybody gets a degree in engineering to be able to see whatever gains have occurred here. So this is a real concern going forward.
Mike Moffat, you look at the same chart. What do you see?
Yeah, I'm concerned going forward as well. So we have that period to 1995, and we have a lot of bad luck. A couple recessions. We have the Bank of Canada really trying to stomp down inflation, which they did a fantastic job of doing, but had some economic consequences. Since 95, things have been, reasonably good, but we've had a lot of good luck. Oil prices have more than doubled. Is that going to happen again in the future? Probably not. The Canadian dollar's gone up 30%. Which is great for our purchasing power, allows us to purchase more. It's had problems with, it's caused problems for southwestern Ontario, but for the country as a whole, it's a good thing. Is that going to happen again? Probably not. We had a large residential construction boom. We were building all these houses, people were out filling the houses with this, that, and the other, and debt levels were rising. Is that going to happen again? Probably not. And then the fourth thing, as Armin points out, is more women entering the workforce. That trend can continue, but it can't continue forever. So we did have a good 10 to 15 year run, but it wasn't very sustainable. It wasn't based on any sort of productivity increases or anything like that.
The Ontario Liberal Party has been offering this clean energy benefit of $1 billion a year to keep electricity prices low. The New Democratic Party is talking about taking the HST off of electricity prices to keep them lower. Both the Liberals and the New Democrats are talking about taking the debt retirement charge off of people's electricity bills, again, in an effort to make electricity prices lower. I think I've heard your leaders say these are stupid ideas that bribe people and don't encourage conservation and encourage people to be energy pigs. So what do we do about trying to incent people to use less power?
That's absolutely right, Steve. We need to help people invest in their homes and businesses to make them more energy efficient and increase conservation so that we can help people save money by saving energy. The hydro handouts that the other parties are talking about are driving consumer behavior in the wrong direction. The 10% benefit is structured so that the biggest consumers receive the biggest subsidy, which is absolutely the wrong way to go. Taking the HST off of hydro is a short-term solution that doesn't actually address the problem today. It doesn't solve the problem for the future. What the Greens are talking about is taking that $1 billion a year that we would save by canceling the Darlington refurbishment and investing that directly into people's homes, helping them to increase their energy efficiency and conservation, saving money by saving energy, and also will create 56,000 jobs along the way. Good local jobs in our community.
Peter Tabbins, I forgot one of the things that was also part of your plan, which was to send people a rebate. You want to send them a check in the mail as well, as a reduction to help pay for their energy bills. Now, yes, nobody wants to, and I've heard Andrea Horwath say it, and I'm sure it's true, that there's some places in Ontario where the monthly electricity bill looks like the mortgage payment, right?
Well, in fact, in my riding, I have a constituent who came into me with a $1,400 bill for his power in January.
For home?
For his home.
$1,400 a month?
Yep, that month.
Okay. And nobody wants to see that. But no. having said that, how do you fight the notion that by doing all of the incentives you're doing, you're actually encouraging people to use more and not encouraging conservation?
I'll point out two things here, Steve. One, growing income inequality in Ontario has made life a lot tougher for the bulk of people in this province. And they, for whatever reason, desperately need some relief. And I think that politically, they make a reasonable demand. Help me deal with my standard of living, my cost of living.
That's one thing. No, I hear you, but that's one thing. But you're going to take the HST off the person who's got a 10,000 square foot home in Mississauga as well.
Can I go to
How does that make sense? Point two. Sorry, go ahead.
What I find when I talk to people is they've got lots of incentive to conserve, to put in place efficiency. They don't have the capital. And in fact, that's why our platform is put in place funding, a revolving fund for people to do energy efficiency, to put solar panels on their homes, so that people who are affected by the cost, and let's face it, the cost of electricity now, the peak price, 13 cents a kilowatt hour, conservation is 3 to 6 cents. People really want to go to that lower cost. We can help them do that.
Okay, let me go to Lisa MacLeod. What does the Progressive Conservative Party have to say on these issues?
Well, sure. Let me just jump in as the soccer mom on the panel, as somebody who understands that there's parents across Ontario wanting to conserve, just like my family and I. However, when you're running out with the kids and you're trying to get your dishwasher on and your laundry on, you are thinking about trying to go after 7 o'clock and before 7 o'clock during that 12-hour time frame, but we're not seeing the reduction anymore. That's the problem. There is no incentive right now for mums and dads across this province to change their habits with their power, and I think that's a key issue. Now, the Ontario Progressive Conservatives said we'd be more systemic on how we would reduce hydro bills across the province, and how we think we can achieve a $384 reduction from what the Liberals are projecting in their 42% increase. We would change the Green Energy Act. We'd actually scrap it. That would save us about $20 billion. We've said we would look into OPG and Hydro One and make them more accountable. Look, this is two organizations within the government that the Auditor General and the OEB have complained about in terms of raising people's rates because of their incompetency. This Liberal government, they haven't done it in the last 10 years. They're not going to do it in the next 10 years. We've said we do that. And we've also said, and getting back to our earlier point, we need to work with Quebec and Manitoba and New York for cheaper power and make sure that we're not exporting $1 billion worth of our power at a heavy loss to our economy. These are things that we believe we can do in the Ontario PC Party that can systemically change our power consumption and systemically can reduce our bills. You know, if you believe in the Liberals, they haven't done it in the last 10 years. They're not going to do it in the next 10 years. We've put a plan in place in our millionjobsplan.com that we believe can help families right across the province, as well as seniors, and make life more affordable for them.
Let me ask Bob Chiarelli about this directly then. Your government asked Don Drummond, well-known economist, to go out there and find some ways to save money. He came back and he said, your clean energy benefit is a waste of $1 billion. You should get rid of it. You guys kept it anyway. How come?
Well, Steve, first of all, I want to address the conservation issue that Ken Burns alluded to.
I hope you will get around to my clean energy benefit question eventually.
The clean energy benefit is sunsetted. It was intended to be temporary, to deal with a temporary pressure on prices for about a 5-year period, and at the end of 5 years, it automatically ends. I agree with Ken that it should be done systemically and it should not be artificially propped up. And I believe our policy in the Liberal Party is closer to Ken's, or we're closely aligned on this. Our recent long-term energy plan is called Conservation First. And if it's less expensive to do it by conservation, you do that before generation every single time. We are proposing 7 terawatts, which is a lot of power, to be conserved over the next 6 years. We've given a lot more authority to local distribution companies, to the utilities, to initiate and innovate in conservation programs, the type of things that Ken is talking about, some of the things that we've already started to do. So conservation is the best way to go, and we've heard that from stakeholders of every class as we've gone through consultations in the long-term energy plan. So I've never heard the word conservation come off Tim Hudak's lips, and Lisa just confirmed that it's not part of their policy, that they see it's too inconvenient, and they have a totally unrealistic unbelievable assessment of conservation. Conservation is saving thousands and thousands of megawatts through all kinds of
Okay, I'm down to just a few minutes here, so I should get Lisa MacLeod to respond to that accusation, and then I want to save a couple of minutes left for one more thing. Go ahead, Lisa.
Well, it's simply not true. When you're looking at a government whose off-peak hours price is almost the exact same as the on-peak price, it's very hard for young families and I'm speaking on behalf of them. Bob, I coach soccer. I get out to my daughter's dance lessons. I hear from real people who are concerned with this government's energy policy. It's all of the disincentives. And I think it's unfair for you to mischaracterize our policies as your government has been doing for the past 3 weeks. I mean, this is, again, fear-mongering by this government. I'm simply saying to you, if you want to have an incentive plan, you're going to have to ensure that it meets the needs of the population. And what they're seeing instead is they're choosing to change their habits, but they're not seeing a direct saving or any incentive
Okay, just
whatsoever.
a few minutes.
That's a challenge.
And now joining us for their perspectives, we welcome in London, Ontario, Deb Matthews, Liberal candidate for London North Centre and Ontario's current Minister of Health and Long-Term Care. Here in studio, Christine Elliott, PC candidate for Whitby-Oshawa and her party's health critic. In Sudbury, Ontario, Fran Jalina, NDP candidate for Nickel Belt and her party's health critic. And again back here in Toronto, Teresa Punn. She is the Green Party candidate for the riding of Willowdale and an allergist and immunologist practicing in the GTA. And finally, Ashley Chanati, reporter with QP Briefing. And we are grateful to have you three around our table and our two guests out of town around our virtual table joining us for this discussion. And I know just before we get started, speaking on behalf of certainly everybody who's on the program today, and Christine Elliott, this is your first visit to our program since your husband Jim Flaherty so unexpectedly passed away. We wanted to pass along our condolences, I know, on behalf of everybody on the program and so many of our viewers as well.
Thank you very much, Steve.
And now on to business. Minister, to you first. Why do you think the public has been well served having a Liberal government in power for the past 10 years as it relates to health care in the province?
Well, Steve, I was elected 10 and a half years ago, so I remember very, very vividly the stories I heard from people in my riding about the healthcare system then. It was impossible to get a family doctor. Now we've got almost all Ontarians with a family doctor, and we're really focusing on those areas where it's still a challenge. People were waiting unbelievable periods of time for important surgery. We've cut wait times in half, and people notice that. We've rebuilt our infrastructure. We've had a real focus on mental health, and I think one of the biggest shifts we've seen over the last few years is a lot more support at home and in the community, and that's, again, something we want to continue to build on. I like to say that our system is not perfect. It's a whole lot better than it was 10 years ago, and we are going to continue to work to make sure that people do get the care they need when they need it in the most appropriate place, and that's very often at home.
Okay, you may not be shocked to hear this, but I'm not sure your critics are all going to agree with that assessment. Let's hear what they have to say here. Christine Elliott, the Liberals think they have a good story to tell on family docs, on wait times, on rebuilding infrastructure, etc. Do they?
No, I think there's still very many major gaps in the system, and study after study has shown that while we are spending a lot of money on healthcare, we're not getting the best value for each dollar spent. So we really need to redouble our efforts in that respect, because we're seeing more and more people who have special needs, more and more people who need access to life-saving medications that are very expensive. We have more and more people who are not getting the home care services that they need and who are waiting in hospital for long-term care services. We still need significant more mental health and addiction services. We've concentrated, to be fair, on youth and early identification, but we still need to have more robust services for adults and places for care for young people.
Frangelina, how do you see it?
Well, I agree that there's been a phenomenal amount of money invested in our healthcare system, and some of that money has brought us good programs and services. But if you look at it in its entirety, the Ministry of Health is there as an overseer. I would say they have failed in their primary mandate of oversight and accountability, which means that for the $50 billion that we spend, a lot of it ended up being spent in ways that did not reach the patients. So every Monday morning when we go to the office, we have an hour complaints of people who did not get their PSW service, who did not get their home care, whose loved one with a mental health crisis ended up in jail or ended up in anywhere but where they should have been looked after. We have a good home healthcare system, but we could have done so much better with a better overseer, a better Ministry of Health, a better Minister of Health that would have done their job better.
A better Minister of Health as well? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I am.
Okay. to the Greens. What do you say?
So as a physician who's trained in 3 provinces, I understand that over time, yes, we have come a long way. The problem is if that's all we're doing, we are going to fail our population in the future. The needs will only increase. The obesity epidemic, the elderly epidemic. Our patients are currently not being served well enough today, and we have to prepare for the future.
What's missing that hasn't been happening for the last decade that you think ought to be?
So something very unsexy, and I don't know if it would ever grab headlines, but we need a lot more nursing home beds. So right now, many patients in the hospital are there for far longer than they need to be. As an example, when I was doing internal medicine, sometimes as high as 80% of my list of 30 plus patients were what we deemed inactive or alternate level of care, meaning we fix them, but they have nowhere to go.
So they stay in hospital.
Exactly. Sometimes it's not safe for them to go home, even with all the home care supports we can throw at them. Sometimes they do need a transition space where they can receive the rehab they need. And so a bed in the hospital costs upwards of $1,000 a day. A bed in a well-trained retirement home that is safe and that is respectful to our elderly would cost far less and would provide the elderly with the time to convalesce.
Okay, lots of issues to get into there. Ashley, you watch this obviously from your nonpartisan perch at QP Briefing. Liberals think they have a good story to tell on healthcare. What does it look like from where you're sitting?
I think it's a very mixed story. I think there are a lot of successes that this government can tout in the healthcare system. I think that there's been a lot of hospital infrastructure renewal. I think a lot of communities can say that they've seen, new builds or renovations in their areas. I think that a lot of the shift towards community-based care is the right spirit, and I think it's something that all parties have in their platforms in varying degrees and in varying ways. And I think that's something that is necessary as we face the demographic challenges we do with the aging baby boomer population. But I do think that there are glitches, and very high profile and expensive glitches. The Orange Air Ambulance scandal, the problems at eHealth and trying to get electronic medical records. We've come a long way since that happened a few years ago, but you still see study after international study that says Canada and Ontario lag the rest of a lot of developed nations with strong healthcare systems when it comes to our electronic medical records. And now there are questions whether straight up electronic medical records are enough, or if they need to be this new, more integrated version we're seeing in other countries, particularly Scandinavia.
You, having interviewed all of these people before and spent a lot of time watching healthcare at Queen's Park, are going to tell us which one of our guests today would make the best health minister going forward.
Well, I actually think they would all make great health ministers, and I told your producer this as well. No, I do. They all really know the file.
I've already got 4 politicians on the show. We don't need a 5th here. What is that?
And I'm meeting Teresa for the first time, but I'd said that to her as well, because whenever I go to any of these smart women at Queen's Park with a really in-the-weeds policy wonk, they can all give me a great answer. And I think that they all know the files, and I think they all have the same idea that we do need to prepare our system for that coming demographic, and they would take different paths there. There were varying levels of involvement for the private sector, with varying levels of involvement for different agencies that exist, or whether there'd be mergers. But I do think the general sentiment among the 3 of them that we need to start shifting towards more community care and away from the costly institutional care is something that will continue regardless of who wins on June 12th.
And that is the Agenda's Week in Review. You can see all of those programs in their entirety. They're on our website, theagenda.tvo.org, on our iTunes channel, and on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/theagenda.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.